They've got to get mobilized. And your point is right, that really successful revolutions happen, and real momentum happens by many tens of thousands of little things happening. And, you know, it's people talking to each other at the golf club or in the local bar or wherever they go and meet people, or, you know, over Sunday lunch with the family. It's lots of little conversations that develop momentum and make a real difference. And I'm absolutely convinced of that. I'm also convinced that across the Western world, there has never been less confidence in our traditional career politicians. So I think the mood is ripe for it. And I think that people are beginning to realize that this stuff is now affecting them directly. I mean, look, whatever they sign up to in Copenhagen next week affects every man and woman in England and in the USA, because what they're going to do is they're going to tax us more and continue to export our jobs to India and places like that. So I think this stuff is beginning to hit home. I think it's why we're beginning to win the argument. But, I mean, hey, there's no room for complacency. We've got a long, long way to go yet.
Absolutely. They can't win unless we just sit down and shut up, because they always create the crisis or use a crisis to get more power. The crisis gets worse, then they use that to get more power. If we just point out that they are the main progenitors of our deindustrialization, the dependency, the welfare, the open borders, all the problems, there's no way they can stand if we just stand up like the little boy saying the emperor is wearing no clothes. In closing, in the last 5-6 minutes we have left, and we're very appreciative in your busy schedule, sir, specifically with the Copenhagen Greenhouse Gas Initiative, it looks like this agreement's falling through, but they will agree to meet again in Mexico City. And Obama has said, I don't care if Senate won't ratify, I'm going to implement through the bureaucracy. Same thing Gordon Brown and Tony Blair have done with EU expansion. How do you counter the lawlessness of the bureaucracies, of the prime ministers, of the presidents, and their bureaucracies who don't care even when the elected bodies do the right thing?
I'm afraid, I remember very well when Obama was elected, and it was seen in England like the second coming of the Lord. You know, all the media, wasn't it wonderful? And I was on a big TV show, and I was asked my opinion. And I said I was very concerned about many of the things that Obama stood for. And I was somewhat vilified at the time for that. But I think Obama's response to Copenhagen, I think Obama's attitude, you know, towards your own parliamentary bodies is quite extraordinary. And I think this marks Obama out to be, frankly, and I don't come on this show to offend Americans, but I honestly think that Obama is a very dangerous man who doesn't really, truly believe in democracy. And I would have thought that if this is how he's going to behave as American president, then it is your duty as Americans, if you believe in democracy, and if you believe, as I believe, in the principle that, you know, no parliament may bind its successor, and that the job of parliaments is to hold the executive, in your case the president, to account, then you've got to jolly well make sure that he doesn't get re-elected for a second term. It's just as simple as that.
Absolutely. In the 3.5 minutes we've got left, sir, I just want to encourage people to go to UKIP.org, UKIndependenceparty.org, and learn a lot more, and certainly set up our own sovereignty groups outside of the Republicans, because just as Mr. Farage talks about both the big parties, Labour and Tories, being controlled over in England, our two parties are controlled. Obviously, things are moving quicker right now under Obama than they would have under a Republican administration. But regardless, it's Tweedledee and Tweedledum. Everybody needs to mobilize, as Lord Monckton's talked about, a worldwide freedom party in every nation saying we want sovereignty, we want free market, we don't want to be run by a bunch of bureaucrats. In closing, sir, any other points you'd like to make, any other information you'd like to relay about EU expansion? One question I had, I saw press reports about multiple nations are threatening to pull out of the EU. So the EU is collapsing even as it tyrannically expands its Lebensraum.
Yeah, I mean, just at the very point where they get their constitutional treaty through, where they get their president, where they get their foreign minister, where they get total power over the member states, even at this very point, it's becoming clear that the electorates of the member states don't want it. It's becoming clear that countries like Greece and Ireland, which mistakenly joined the monetary system and took the euro as their currency, now find themselves in an impossible position and with nothing to do. And I would just say this. You know, if you look through history, there is no example of any free people willingly giving up the right to govern itself. And yet what has happened to us in England is we have been betrayed by Labour and Conservative politicians successively over the last 40 years, to the point where our Parliament has become nothing more than a charade. And I will go on fighting, and I will go on standing up, because I believe that the best people to govern Britain are the British people themselves, and I want my 4 kids to grow up in a country that they can call their own. And I believe this is a great historic battle, and we are going to win this battle.
Well, sir, obviously you're all over radio and TV in the UK. You don't need much of our help, but we do have a large internet audience and satellite audience in the UK. Specifically, there's a lot of folks probably never got involved in politics, but they're now. How can people help you get elected to the UK Parliament? If
they want to help me in any way they can, go to UKIP.org, go to our website, register with us, and say to yourself that you're going to give a little bit, just a little bit, of your time and money to fight to get the independence, the sovereignty, the self-respect and pride of the United Kingdom back. As I said earlier, the sacrifice I'm asking you to make is as nothing compared with that your grandfathers and great-grandfathers had to make in 2 world wars. We're doing this because it's right. We're doing this because we've been led up the garden path and totally betrayed by our politicians. This is the fight back. It's real. It's happening. Get on board.
Well, it was Cicero who said that, to paraphrase, the enemy that comes to your gate openly with their banners is not the real threat. It's the traitor within who knows your language, who knows your customs. And so, again, whereas machine guns firing at our ancestors was a terrible thing, and they were very noble to fight, it's this creeping death that's so hard to deal with. I think people should give a lot, because if we allow this scientific dictatorship, as the UN calls itself in many of its documents, to continue to grow and put its police state grid in, they know people are going to revolt and resist. They're racing to get their system in place to oppress the people. And thanks to leaders like yourself, Nigel Farage, the UK member of the EU Parliament, we have a fighting chance, because we know you there in Airstrip 1 are on the front lines against Europe, who is setting up this planetary world government, this dictatorship. So, again, UKIP.org. Let me say bye to you during the break, and we'll let you go, sir. But thank you very much for spending time with us.
Thank you. Not at all. Not at all.
Extremely powerful. UKIP.org. Get behind this fight as we're allied against the New World Order. We'll be right back. Stay with us.